the guy who was formerly the quarterback of the New England Patriots, Mac Jones, might be getting a seat this week because we go to San Francisco. Niners head coach Kyle Shanahan spoke to NBC Sports Bay Area yesterday and announced that both Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall will be back on the field this Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. Purdy had been dealing with a toe injury, Pearsall with a knee injury, but both are in a good spot and ready to be back in your fantasy lineup this weekend. So, Cynthia, as we get to the game previews, we do have Brock Purdy with a little bit of a homecoming, right? Goes back to Arizona, where he's going to make the start for the San Francisco 49ers. But any other Niners maybe that you have your eye on to plug in this week?
Well, I would definitely say Ricky Pearsall is worth putting in your starting lineup, depending on what your other wide receiver situation happens to be. But George Kittle, this forecast to be a pretty nice game for him. I'm starting him for a lot of reasons. Number one, I know that you get this cool stat where how he's such a great teammate, where it's like almost a yard more per rush when you're looking at him on the field in that 12 personnel than when he's not on the field. I don't care. Now he's going to be the subject of passes as well. This is a very pass-happy team. This is a team who's excited to get their starting quarterback Mac Jones has been playing really well, but they're excited to get Brock Purdy back as well. And George Kittle, to me, forecast to benefit from that, even though Arizona's defense, they do have Buda Baker, who I love, but ultimately they match 12 personnel with base, meaning more opportunities for space for Kittle to work.
Yeah, I love both tight ends in this one, not only George Kittle, but Trey McBride. And one of the reasons we love Trey McBride is because of his quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, who is a sleeper this week. He's had at least 19 fantasy points in each of his 4 starts this season. He is averaging close to 280 passing yards per game, the second most pass attempts per game as a start of the season. Now, a lot of that is because they're trailing, but I do expect this to be rather high scoring. The 49ers defense has allowed the second most passing yards per game since week 5. That's got to be right around the time that Fred Warner went down. It might or might not be a coincidence, but I think you can absolutely start Jacoby Brissett this week.
Yeah, we love Jacoby Brissett for getting a lot of those other guys involved and playing well himself on his own merit. Next up, what might be the game of the week on paper, heading over to SoFi Stadium there for the Seahawks and the Rams, and a lot of things to watch, a lot of things to be excited about. The Seahawks running backs are not one of those things to be excited about. You are sitting a Seahawks running back if you have one. They actually have one of the highest run play percentages in the league, which means they're running the ball a lot, but they are also one of the least efficient run games in the NFL, averaging just 3.8 yards per carry. That's 4th worst in the league. You got Zach Charbonnet, who's incredibly touchdown reliant. You got Kenneth Walker, who can be explosive, but pretty much only works between the 20-yard lines. On top of it, the Rams have just been a miserable matchup for running backs this year. They've given up the 5th fewest rushing yards to the position, just 2 touchdowns to running backs allowed all season long. So it's been tough to start a Seahawks running back. It's going to be almost impossible, I think, to try to start one this week.
Well, I'm going for, can you please do the R word for me, please? Exactly. Thank you. No one does it better than Marcus. But Cooper Kupp returns to SoFi Stadium. He says it doesn't matter. He says he doesn't care. I don't know if I think any of those things are true. I think that's just what you say. But the other reasons for liking his opportunities this week, they're all in terms of the math, meaning he's second on the team in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. And he has the 33rd most fantasy points per route run among wide receivers last week. So I'm looking at those 9 or more fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games, and I think maybe there's some extra play action opportunities for him in catching passes from Sam Darnold against his former team.
I also believe, I think they're doing like a kind of a tribute to Cooper Kupp before the game.
Are they?
Coming up this week. So maybe try and calm him down so he doesn't go big.
Reverse psychology much?
Right.
What is that? That's a good move, yeah.
Yeah, there it is. We'll go from the NFC West to the AFC West, the big one between the Chiefs and the Broncos. And what are you looking at here, Rank?
Well, I'm going to go with Rashee Rice as a start. I know it seems pretty automatic. Like, why wouldn't I be starting him? Well, you know what? Believe it or not, a lot of people have been hitting me up on Threads asking me, is this a good start this week?
Threads?
You don't do Threads?
I don't.
What are you, a boomer?
Yeah.
Like, listen, join us kids on Threads. But here's my thing. Rashee Rice, his average, over 22 fantasy points per game since week 7, which is the 5th most amongst wide receivers. He's had at least 18 fantasy points in 3 consecutive games. He's also getting end zone opportunities as well. So I understand. Tough matchup. You have a lot of options. I think this is more for people who have 2 wide receivers and they're trying to decide, do I put him in my flex? Do I do? Yeah. absolutely, we're starting Rashee Rice this week.
Well, in my Mastodon chat group, I'm telling folks that they have to sit Bo Nix this week because as much as we want to be a believer on this show, the last few weeks have been sort of up and down. Fewer than 175 passing yards in 3 of his last 5 games, and he's kind of been bit by the interception bug lately. 4 picks in his last 3. Going against the Chiefs pass defense that's ranked 5th, has given up just 9 touchdown passes this season. On top of it, the rushing upside that we've seen from Nix has kind of gone away recently. He's actually had negative rushing yards in 2 of his last 3 games. So look, chances are if you have Bo Nix, you have another option. I would try to look to that other option if you have the opportunity to do that this week. All right, we are going to shift our focus to what's going on over on the European scene, namely because we got the Washington Commanders and the Miami Dolphins playing in that one. And Cynthia, what are you watching for over there in Madrid?
Well, Jalen Waddle is obviously someone that you are absolutely, without a doubt, starting. You need to target this defense. They're giving up about 1 million yards per reception. That's a conservative figure, but it is a very generous pace to opposing downfield passers, and Jalen Waddle has been able to absolutely exploit that. The team, I think that this will be a nice rallying cry. I know that it's supposed to be a little bit rainy there as well, but I don't care. I still think Tua Tagovailoa will get him the ball in space and take that opportunity to really just target different areas of the defense, just like Dan Campbell and the Lions did last week.
You know, I'm going to say that Devon Achane is a must start. We understand that. One of the things that we love about him is that he's a great receiver out of the backfield. 6 games with at least 5 receptions this year. Only CMC has more. One of the things that I've really been impressed about this season is that they've gone back to feeding them the ball in between the tackles. He's averaging over 5 yards per rush this season. Now he's got a great matchup against the Commanders, who've allowed the 4th most rushing yards to running backs since week 6. Marcus?
All right. Well, as we mentioned, the Commanders square off against the Dolphins as Sunday showdown in the AFC North between the Bengals and the Steelers. And Cynthia, methinks that music video suggests you want to talk about Jamar Chase here.
Yeah, you're going to want to start him. I mean, look, I understand that this is automatic. Spoiler alert, I'm looking for humble brags, and this is one that I feel very strongly about. He wears that number 1. It's going to be a big opportunity against the Steelers secondary that we've seen have some interesting results. And remember what happened last time out, which, you know, history, it rhymes. It doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but I am not as concerned as some people about Joe Flacco being able to connect with Jamar Chase. I also think, you know, Uno time is a real thing for this team. And if they even want to have, you know, a chance at Joe Burrow making a meaningful return, they really need to get going in this matchup.
And if we're starting Jamar Chase, I'm going to say you can go ahead and start both quarterbacks in this matchup. Let's start with Joe Flacco. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers right here. Despite the fact that he has looked his age a little bit, I don't know, but he's still been pretty efficient. He has averaged 27 fantasy points per game over the last 4. He did have a great game against them last time, getting nearly 23 fantasy points. Joe Flacco's the one that I'm rolling with this week. I had to pick him up or I'm starting him, especially in leagues where you get 6 points for passing touchdowns. If I was a lesser man, I would point out the fact that our showrunner, who is a Cincinnati person, didn't want us to put in the Joe Flacco news when he was traded to me. He's like, who cares about this for fantasy? I'm like, Joe Flacco is going to be amazing. But you know what? I'm not going to bring it up because I think that would be beneath me, and I don't want to be that kind of person.
No,
what? You know what I'm saying?
We're not petty like that.
I'm saying I'm not saying it. I'm saying I'm not saying it. Please be there with me.
Don't put in the paper that I got mad. Staying in the AFC North, we have the artists formerly known as the Cleveland Browns taking on the artists currently known as the Cleveland Browns. And when we are looking at this one, Cynthia, what are you paying attention to?
Okay, so in this game, there's a lot of different ways to slice this one. And then I'm looking at, I have no idea who I said, I'm sorry.
Zay Flowers.
Okay, good. Zay Flowers in this matchup. When I'm looking at, look, Denzel Ward is likely not going to play. This team plays a ton of man. They also blitz, and if they do that, good luck, because it's going to be Lamar Jackson and a bunch of space. If you give him open space to work with, have fun. Have fun with Zay Flowers running all over you. So for me, Zay Flowers, he's a top 5 receiver this week.
I'm telling you, you can start Quinshon Judkins. He's got sleeper vibes for me this week. He made his NFL debut against the Baltimore Ravens way back in week 2. Now, very few people, I think, had the courage to start him, but he actually got 61 rushing yards on 10 carries. Actually had 10 fantasy points in that one as well. He's got 5 games this year with 75 or more rushing yards. Baltimore's defense has been better over the last couple of weeks, but they were still giving up chunk plays on the ground to Aaron Jones against the Vikings last week. So I think there's a real opportunity for Quinshon Judkins to make some plays here. I think the Browns want to try to control the football as much as possible and try to keep it away from that Ravens offense when and where they can. All right. Heading down to Duval, where the Chargers and Jaguars will meet for the first time since that epic Charger collapse in the playoffs.
Oh.
I didn't mean to mention that.
Why are you bringing up old stuff?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to not mention it or whatever it was you said. Anyway, Cynthia, is there a running back for maybe the lightning bolts you're paying attention to?
Absolutely. Kamani Vidal. I think he's a great opportunity to help his quarterback not get hit so freaking much. Justin Herbert has taken more than 20 more quarterback hits than any other quarterback this season. If they want to last to the playoffs, if they want to make a real shot at having, a trip to, Santa Clara late in the season, they need to start running the football more. This is what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. Kamani Vidal looks like he is the guy who's going to do it for them. And it's a good opportunity against this Jags front who's had, I'm going to call it interesting results. They played like lots of different teams all in one season, and this is an opportunity for Vidal to exploit that.
I love that pick. I'm going to be starting him in one of my leagues, and I'm also going to be starting the wee lad McConkey. No, he's not wee. He's a tall human being. Don't let this fool you. However, this is Lad McConkey is kind of an illustration in patience because a lot of people gave up on him in the early part of the season. They're like, sophomore slump, this guy, why did I pick him? But we've seen over the last couple of games, he's had at least 5 targets. In each of his last 30 receptions since week 6, which is tied for the third most in the NFL. The Jags have struggled against wide receivers this season. They've allowed a top 6 in 3 of their last 4 games. The total's on the board right there, Cynthia. They are correct.
Ooh, all right, love that.
Are they correct?
They are correct.
Okay.
Bill Siddell's here. He's checking them. They're good.
There it is. Up next, the Bucs bounce to Buffalo to battle the Bills, and Cynthia paying attention to who in this
Cade Otton, or if you're in the Midwest, you have to say it with the hard A. Cade Otton. The tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, Chris Godwin out again. They're missing pieces. No Mike Evans. You just have to look at where is the opportunity to get away from any potential pass rush going to be. The tight end position forecast to be something that helps Baker Mayfield, who he's not banged up enough to not play, but I don't believe he's just a tough guy. So I think he's playing through some injuries that maybe will have him wanting to get rid of the ball a little quicker than we've seen in some other games. So I like Cade Otton in this one. Cade Otton.
I also like Tess Johnson, if we're going to stick with Buccaneers pass catchers here. And a guy who's averaging more than 6 targets per game over his last 3 contests. Compared to the 3 total targets that he had in the first 3 games he played this year, also more than 11 air yards per target. So it's not just a lot of short throws. They are trying to get him a little bit more downfield. So you like that. This has the potential to be a back-and-forth offensive contest. A lot of points scored. Could see a lot of Baker Mayfield throwing the ball. We know Emeka Egbuka is going to get his. I think Cade Otton's certainly going to get his. But Tess Johnson, look for him to get some work. I think he's a wide receiver 3 in a lot of different leagues coming up this week. More to come here on NFL Fantasy Live. And this time to get you some news headlines in a segment we call If You Know, You Know. We'll start in Baltimore, where Lamar Jackson will start Sunday in Cleveland. According to John Harbaugh, the star quarterback took some hard hits last Sunday against the Vikings, which led to some knee issues, but fantasy owners can turn that frown upside down because Lamar is back in Week 11. In Buffalo, some bad news and some good news. The bad news is that tight end Dalton Kincaid is officially out this weekend with hamstring injuries, but Khalil Shakir, who's dealing with both ankle and rib injuries, is heading in the right direction. So, Cynthia, we take a little bit of a longer look at the Buffalo Bills. We hear about the injury situation there. Is there a chance that it could be Dawson Knox week this week?
Well, first of all, we need to call him by his correct name, which is the Dawson. You can't call him Dawson. It is the Dawson. And yes, I do believe he has some value this week, in large part because Jamel Dean, the corner for the Bucs, he's allowing a passer rating and coverage of 22.8, sub 23, which is just ridiculous because you get 39.6 for throwing the ball into the ground. So looking for the opportunity to keep Josh Allen, in situations where he's not likely to turn over the ball means a lot more opportunities to target Dawson or the Dawson in this matchup.
All right, so good news there potentially for anybody maybe wanting to stream Dawson Knox. Heading to Sunday Night Football, how is Cynthia like Carrie Underwood? Well, they'll be waiting all day for Sunday night as the Lions and the Eagles face off there. And I'm gonna go out and just tell you now, because I know it's been a topic of conversation, start A.J. Brown this week. Start A.J. Brown this week. This might be the ultimate squeaky wheel game when you have ownership now coming down to talk to A.J. Brown and try and iron some things out. Maybe Big Dom is angling for a Nobel Peace Prize if he can get things smoothed over here, but still a lot of volume, right? 8 targets per game from weeks 2 through 7. I know the last couple weeks have not been great, but you just got to believe. In fact, if you want more on that, just stick around. Have a little bit more on A.J. Brown a little bit later in the show.
I'm going to say that you should start Jameson Williams against the Eagles on Sunday. New offensive play caller, Dan Campbell, really finds a way to get. Actually, it's been over the last couple of weeks. He's had at least 3 games, or he's had 3 games with at least 18 fantasy points this season, 2 games with over 100 receiving yards this year. And one of the things I believe why Dan Campbell was taking over play calling duties was because guys like Jameson Williams would just kind of get left out of the fray there. So with Dan Campbell there rocking the specs, I'm going with J-Mo this week.
Love J-Mo getting involved here. Was a big proponent of him early in the season. Speaking of which, it is time to seize the season, presented by Caesars Sportsbook. According to Caesars Sportsbook, here are the most likely players to score the first touchdown during Sunday Night Football between the Lions and the Eagles. Very little surprise, Jahmyr Gibbs at the top of the list, followed closely by Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and A.J. Brown round out the top 5. Cynthia, of those guys, is there somebody there, maybe somebody off menu you think could score the first touchdown?
Well, I'm looking at Saquon Barkley in this matchup because as good as the Lions are at defending the run in general, things change when you get into the red area, and the Lions are a little bit more generous in that area, especially when you think about all of the heavy formations that they're going to be able to use, or even pulling Saquon Barkley out wide and using him as a receiver. So for me, it is number 26 in the end zone first, but I do think we also see one from Jahmyr Gibbs too, so we have to balance it out with a little bit of positivity for my Lions fans. Both of those running backs will score.
Seems plausible, both those guys.
The Chicago Bears fans have never wavered on Ben Johnson, and Cynthia's Lions fans, they boo Ben Johnson. Not Aaron Glenn, I wonder why, but still, the Bears are going to be traveling to Minnesota this week to try to avenge a Week 1 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Let's start off with one of my sleepers for the week, and I'm going to go with Luther Burden III, who has started to become a bigger part of this offense. He's had at least 50 receiving yards in each game where he's had 3 targets. It might happen this season. Keep an eye on the injury report with DJ Moore. Plus, he could end up moving past Olamide Zaccheaus onto the depth chart. On the other side of the ball, J.J. McCarthy engineered that comeback against the Bears in Week 1. What do we say, Cynthia?
I'm saying beware J.J. McCarthy. Outside the first 2 drives of games where he does a very nice job of following the script that KOC sets out for him, things get wacky. He has like a 100 passer rating point decrease. The Bears do not want the Vikings to get the better of both of these games in this series. They're staring at an opportunity to make the playoffs. So I'm looking at J.J. McCarthy and I'm saying, okay, all his fantasy points are going to come in the first 2 drives. Outside of that, yikes.
All right, the Green Bay Packers are going to be on the road to face the New York Giants. Green Bay coming off back-to-back losses. The Giants have a new quarterback with Jameis Winston. What could that mean for Theo Johnson?
It could mean good things for Theo Johnson. One thing we know, Jameis Winston's going to want to throw the ball.
Yes.
He's going to want to tote the rock. There's a ton of missing pieces in the pass-catching situation for the Giants, but Theo Johnson, I know he was like a favorite of Jackson Dart. I would imagine that also makes him a favorite, or at least a target for Jameis Winston, but don't be surprised if we start to see Theo Johnson split out wide. Look at that opportunity to the mismatch in size and really, at least try to target some, I don't know, Valentine-ish areas of the Packers secondary. Whoa, you like that?
I love it. Great idea right there. By the way, speaking of Jordan Love, he has been labeled as a coach killer this week. Is Matt LaFleur coaching for people? Settle down. Jordan Love has had at least 270 passing yards in 2 of his last 3 games. I'm going to say you can go ahead and start him this week against a Giants defense that has allowed the 4th most fantasy points per game to the position this year. Plus, they've allowed a top 8 quarterback in 4 of their last 5 games. So next week, all you hot take artists, can go find somebody else. And listen, I say this as a Bears fan, lay off the pack. They're going to be just fine. All right, let's move on to Atlanta and the Carolina Panthers this week. And typically, I would sit here and say to start Drake London in London, but there's some injury news right here. Obviously, he is going to be on the practice report. He's been on the injury report. He's been limited in Thursday's practice. He's got a little bit of an illness. He's fighting through a little bit of a back issue, so he's currently questionable for Sunday. But if he is suiting up for the Atlanta Falcons, he is going to be suiting up for Ranks Tanks this week against that Panthers defense that has allowed a top 6 wide receiver in 2 of their last 5 games. He has been averaging over 10 targets per game this season, I should say. But we love Bijan Robinson. But what do we do with this Tyler Algier fellow, Cynthia?
Well, some have labeled Tyler Algier a little thief, a vulture of the touchdowns that happened last week in Germany against the Colts. And for me, that makes him a sleeper in large part because against Carolina last time, we saw no points scored by the Falcons. I think they're going to start using this 2 running back situation, meaning basically putting Bijan Robinson out there as a potential, pass catcher, if you will. Even if Drake London's back, I still think he'll be used in the pass catching game, which leaves things for Tyler Algier to clean up on the ground. And he's just a little touchdown vulture.
He's an actual startable asset. There's not a lot of startable assets in this Titans game going up against the Houston Texans. But what are we doing here, Cynthia?
We're looking at Nico Collins, and we're going to get a humble brag off of this one. Not only is he really good in, basically Hail Mary situations at the end of game when somehow the Jacksonville Jaguars have scored 26 points. I don't understand that, but short fields, we get it. But he's also valuable on intermediate passes. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is. I know it's not going to be CJ Stroud. It's going to be Davis Mills, who has a pretty epic neck. But, Nico Collins will be sticking his neck out there for his quarterback.
Like a giraffe. No, I'm just kidding. I have a sleeper with Jaden Higgins this week. Here's a note for you, Cynthia. Put this out there in the interwebs. But Jaden Higgins has scored a touchdown in every game he's ever played against the Titans. I know it's one, but still, every game. You cannot argue with the math. The math says, but what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, he scored at least 13 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3. So if you're looking for a wide receiver to stream, it might be Jaden Higgins. I wouldn't start him over this one receiver we're about to talk about in just a matter of seconds because one of the star receivers in this league went on to the Janky Rondo stream and told fantasy managers to go ahead and sit him. Does Marcus Grant agree? Well, we'll find out right now with A Minute with Marcus.